Welcome to the HFY Vault channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care. In the middle of a vast, quiet valley, far from any town or village, there lived a lonely farmer named Jacob. His days were simple. He tended his crops, fed his animals, and repaired his old wooden barn. Jacob had no family. The neighbors were miles away, and the evenings were long and silent. The only sound was the wind through the trees and the occasional call of a distant bird. He often wished for a companion, someone to share the quiet nights with, but life on the farm was hard, and loneliness had become his constant friend. One night, a strange light pierced the sky. Jacob was finishing his chores when he saw it, a glowing blue sphere descending rapidly from the stars. It landed behind his barn with a soft thud, leaving a trail of shimmering sparks in the air. Heart pounding, he grabbed his lantern and cautiously approached the light. Behind the barn, he found a small, trembling figure. She was no taller than a child, with glowing violet eyes and skin that shimmered like the night sky. Her delicate ears were pointed, and her hair flowed like silver moonlight. Jacob froze. He had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing like this. "Are you okay?" he asked cautiously. The girl flinched but nodded. She didn't speak in any language Jacob knew. Her tiny hands reached out, trembling. Something in her gaze was urgent, pleading. Jacob's heart softened immediately. Despite the strangeness, he felt she needed help. He carried her gently to the barn, where his animals had begun to stir at the unusual light. The girl clung to him as if she understood he was her only protector. Inside, Jacob wrapped her in a warm blanket and offered her some bread and milk. She hesitated, then ate slowly, her violet eyes never leaving his face. Days passed. The girl, whom Jacob came to call Lila, could not speak, but she seemed to understand him perfectly. She followed him everywhere, mimicking his actions and helping with chores in ways that amazed him. Crops grew faster when she watered them, and the animals calmed when she approached. It was as if she carried some kind of gentle magic. Jacob's loneliness faded. The once silent barn now echoed with laughter and small giggles. He realized he had not felt joy like this in years. The villagers, when they occasionally passed by, whispered about the strange girl with glowing eyes. Some were frightened, others curious, but Jacob didn't care. Lila was safe, and that was all that mattered. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sound shook the valley, a strange hum, low and vibrating, coming from the forest edge. Jacob and Lila froze. She ran to him, wrapping her tiny arms around his leg, and for the first time, her lips moved. Though he could not understand her words, the tone was clear, a warning. The next morning, Jacob found dozens of small, unusual eggs scattered around his barn. They pulsed with a soft, golden light, warm to the touch. Lila watched him anxiously, her tiny hands hovering over the eggs as if protecting them. Jacob was astonished. "Are these yours?" he asked softly. She nodded, her eyes wide, and for the first time, she whispered a single word in a language he could not comprehend, yet he somehow understood: family. Life on the farm changed overnight. The barn overflowed with the glowing eggs, each one alive with soft, faint sounds. Lila cared for them tenderly, and Jacob marveled at how she seemed to know exactly what each one needed. Every night, she would sit by the largest eggs, humming a gentle tune that made the farm feel alive. Neighbors came to see, some out of curiosity, some out of fear. But Jacob stood firm. These creatures, small and strange though they were part of his family now. And Lila, she called him something more than friend. One night, as he repaired a broken fence, she climbed onto his shoulder, leaned close, and in a voice clearer than ever, said one word he would never forget: husband. Jacob blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. Lila's glowing eyes shone with certainty, and a warmth spread through his chest. He realized that in saving her, he had found something he had never dared hope for: companionship, love, and a family he had never imagined possible. But the mystery of Lila and her eggs was far from over. Strange creatures had begun to appear at the edges of the valley, drawn by the light of the eggs. Shadows moved silently in the forests, eyes glinting with curiosity, or perhaps hunger. Jacob knew he had to protect his unusual family. The farm, once a quiet refuge, had become a haven, but it was also a beacon for unknown forces. One stormy night, a loud crash shook the barn. Jacob rushed inside to find one of the eggs cracked open. Out crawled a tiny creature, similar to Lila but even smaller, covered in soft luminescent fur. Lila's eyes filled with joy. She held the newborn close, and Jacob felt a surge of pride and fear at the same time. This was his family, fragile yet strong, and he would do anything to keep them safe. Days turned into weeks, and the barn grew fuller with life. Lila's trust in Jacob deepened, and her small gestures spoke volumes, a gentle touch, a protective stance, a playful laugh that echoed through the wooden beams. Jacob had never known such connection before. One afternoon, as the sun painted the fields gold, Jacob and Lila stood together watching the growing family. The farm was alive, buzzing with the soft glow of eggs and the gentle hum of creatures exploring their new world. Lila turned to him, her tiny hand resting on his, and whispered again, "Husband." Jacob smiled, tears welling in his eyes. He had come to the valley alone, expecting a quiet life of toil and solitude. Instead, he had found a universe within his barn, a lost alien girl who had become his family, a future full of possibilities, and a love that crossed the stars. The night sky stretched endlessly above them, but Jacob no longer felt small. With Lila by his side, the glowing eggs around him, and the promise of a strange but beautiful family, he knew one thing for certain: sometimes, the most extraordinary adventures begin in the quietest places. Subscribe to Reddit HFY Sci-Fi Tales for more tales of sacrifice, love, and humanity among the stars.